I guess it'll be fun. Let's do it. And really didn't think. I mean, at first was like, this ain't gonna take off. But then once we got into it, and the shows started kicking on and everything else, and then we started digging in and going camping, it was like it's blown up to what it is now, and which we're still growing, and it's pretty cool. That's kind of how me and him. Well, we knew each other from work, so we were both correctional officers. And I actually knocked him out of work for taking his arm in training. So, but other than that, that's Mannimal. We don't discriminate against nothing. If you whatever story you got, and we've actually grown into other crypts. We wanted to stick straight to Bigfoot, which we still do, but we've opened the door to other things, and because we've experienced it, and that's we might as well open the door to it because it's happened to us. Here we had all that happen. Some here, and my encounter, his stuff that he's had, different things that just might as well open the door. So.
I just thought you were going to introduce yourself.
Well, I did.
Yeah, before we really get into anything, I wanted to take the opportunity to thank everybody for showing up. I said on one of our episodes that I would consider it a success if we had 50 people, and we're on the doorstep. With everyone that has been here yesterday and today, we're over 40 people here. And that's not that bad for really a first-time event. And last time I checked, was that
short notice?
Yeah, it was very short notice. We threw this together in just a couple of months. And last I checked, I think there's 11 states that are represented here today. So that's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
The furthest one being Colorado. Guy actually had to catch a plane and fly in, and Joe drove in from Texas. We got Louisiana, Ohio, several different 11 states that are represented. That says a lot. Speaks a lot to this community. It really does. That people are passionate about this subject and want to get out and learn. And we want to thank everybody for taking the time. There's a million different ways you could have spent your holiday weekend, but you chose to come down here and spend it with us, and we're grateful. We're grateful for that.
H to the Izzo.
But Wall spoke a little bit about the beginning of Mannimal, and how it actually got started was a couple years ago. I was working, and I had about an hour commute from my home to work, and my vehicle went down. My Jeep went down, and I had to borrow a truck from my dad. As soon as I borrowed it, the radio went out. What am I going to do for an hour drive there and back, 2-hour commute each day with no radio? So I discovered podcasts. So it's the first time, I knew they'd been around forever, but it's the first time I'd ever tried them. And I found this certain podcast that dealt with cryptids and paranormal and the unexplained. And I found myself wanting to fast forward or to skip through all the other stuff just to get to the Bigfoot stuff. I've been a lifelong believer in Bigfoot and pretty much all things cryptid, but Bigfoot has been it for me, and that's where my fascination really started. And then I reached out and I found another podcast that dealt strictly with Bigfoot. We all know Sasquatch Chronicles. That's what got me really, really interested in this subject. So started listening to researchers and people that are out just like us that are out doing this, and I found out the part of the country that I live in, which is here, the southeast, is a hotbed for these things. I mean, the terrain, the climate, everything is perfect for them. So with the help of my wife, with the encouragement of my wife, she finally told me one day, I know that you're thinking about doing this, and we live in a great part of the country. It's not going to be too terribly expensive to get started, so there's no reason not to. So with her blessing and her encouragement, Mannimal was born. And like Wall spoke a little bit, I reached out to him. We had been friends for about a year or so, working together as correctional officers. And I just sent him a message out of the blue. I hadn't talked to him in a few weeks. And I just said, hey, do you believe in Bigfoot? or I said, hey, is Bigfoot real? That's what I said. And he said, what? Yeah, he's real. And I told him, yeah, what I was talking about doing, and he's been on board ever since. And really has been cool. It's given me an opportunity to get to know him better and see what a good guy he is, and happy that he's come along with me and been able to take that next step. Like he said, we are growing, continuing to grow, and yeah, one thing that I really believe is that's unique about this community. I don't think that there's a such thing as a Bigfoot expert. I really don't. How can there be? There are people that are knowledgeable on the subject, certainly, but how can we have an expert of a creature that isn't recognized by science? Everyone here is a believer. You know, and most of us are knowers. A lot of us are knowers. We know that they're out there, but we're not experts. And each and every one of us can get out and do something to add to the collective pot, to start putting puzzle pieces together to complete this puzzle. And it takes people like us, because mainstream science isn't getting out there and doing it. It's people like us, researchers, and I say researchers because that's a title that we choose to give ourselves. I didn't go to school for this. I don't have a PhD in Sasquatch studies. I don't know of anyone that does. So I choose to call myself this because I'm going out and I'm trying to gather evidence and speaking with like-minded people that are also out doing the same thing. So I really wanted to get that out there, and from this point on, we'll talk about some of the stuff that we have encountered out in the field. And I've been talking for a few minutes, so I'll hand it to my buddy here and let him tell us about his experience. What happened to you, buddy?
I had the bigger interview. Come on. Well, when I finally, which y'all heard part of it last night, when I first, mine was the basis of the first encounter. The true encounter was with the Bigfoot. I believe 100% it had to be one sitting on my tent, and which y'all know, yeah, I touched the butt. So, and I told him about it, and he's like, "Are you for real?" I was like, "Yeah, I'm not telling you, I'm not blowing smoke up you." Saying, "Yeah, that's what happened, and you're the first one really to ever know about it, and or be told about it, except for my ex-wife." And we've done that and went through the story and then on the YouTube channel with it, and it, everybody was like, "Okay, cool." It's with anybody, with any stories that you get from anybody, a lot of them are going to be hesitant to come forward, and I know that because I felt the same way to come to him after, even though I was, partners with him, I was still like, man, he's going to think I'm a joke, like I'm telling a lie, big lie. I know for a fact what I touched. I know what was there. I went through every process, plus trying to protect my kids.
Well, for those of us those of them that haven't heard it, just tell the story. Yeah, from start to beginning.
Well, the time when me and my boys always, when I drove a truck, I'd come home, I'd say, "Hey boys, what y'all want to do?" I always spent time with my boys. I said, "What do y'all want to do?" "Let's go camping." "Okay, we'll go camping, we'll go catfishing all night long." We found this little spot where we didn't have to basically, pay for a spot for a tent. So we found this cool spot that was, it was in a nice little slough area. I'm like, okay, this should be a good hit. It's good, shaded, perfect. You could have sun hot and it stayed shaded. So I had the big blue Bronco, and we parked, and we were the only one there. We did have another site that's right next to the road. A camper was there. It was actually, to be honest, I think it was actually a homeless person that slept in a camper and stayed in a camper, and he was there, and he was cool. We fished, we did our stuff. When it was time to come getting tired and sleepy, we went to bed. I was actually laying like I am right here. My youngest one was here, my oldest one was here. I was laying on my back, because that's usually how I did when I was camping in the tent. I was laying on my back and flipped on my stomach. My oldest one wakes up. He goes, Dad, I need to go use the bathroom. I said, okay, well, just open the door, go out there to the tree and use the bathroom. No, I gotta do number 2. I was like, okay. I was like, okay. And then I'm turned over to my stomach, trying to find my phone, trying to find the flashlight. And the next thing I know is barely just something. I mean, it wasn't like a plump down. It was real soft. Just laid down. I was like, what is that? And he goes, what is that, Dad? I said, I don't know. Something's laying outside. He said, I'm not going out there now. I was like, it's okay. If it wanted to attack us, it had already attacked to the tent and tore it up. So he sat there for a minute, and that's when I started. I was like, okay, I got to figure this thing out. I've got a massive, and I could tell it was the size. Probably, I would say about if I had to measure, it's the size of this grill. That width, and you're sitting there going. I said, I got a massive. Either I got a predator sitting out here laying on my tent. I've got something out here on my tent, and then I got my 2 boys. What am I gonna do? And all I have was my knife. I didn't have no guns at that time. I have my knife. Fish is outside. There's food out there. It's like, okay, maybe they'll leave us alone. And just basically, I guess in my mind, I guess you'd say on the stupid side, and basically reaching up there, trying to feel what it could be. Feeling the fur, you couldn't really feel the actual texture of the fur, but you could feel something as fur through the tent. But it was rough, kind of muddy, matted almost. You could feel it, and you could hear it rushing when you rub it. You could hear it rubbing up against the tent. I was like, okay, it's got to be a pig. No, it ain't that. That's further down. It should be back over there. There's no tracks here. There's no trails. And I'm like, okay, it's either got to be a bear, but no, a bear should be attacking me if I'm touching him, and he knows something's behind him. And went through different things, and then finally I started putting my hands up there, and I would push. You feel it rock, sit back down. It's like, okay, what in the world? So then I said, son, give me my knife. I reached it here, put it in my right, and it started barely poking. And I had three holes in my tent, just barely poking. This thing does not move, like it doesn't feel nothing. And I'm like, okay. So I lay there, and I said, you still need to use the bathroom? He said, nope, not now. I said, okay. I said, did you?
I already scared it out of him.
Probably. I didn't ask him that. But he didn't. He got home and used the bathroom, but after the next morning. But he passed out. I went back to sleep. I said, don't worry about it. I'll stay awake. And I sat there and I fought it. And I tried to stay awake, and this thing stayed right here. I said, that way I knew where this thing was at. If it moved, I knew I'd be at the front door. I'm ready for it. Next thing I knew, I'm waking up the next morning. Thing's gone. Chris was outside sitting in his chair just fishing away. Son wakes up and said, Dad, what was that last night? I don't know. I said, maybe it had to be something. I didn't really come out and tell him. I said, maybe it was a Bigfoot. I don't know. It's just an animal. But in my mind, I'm going, I either had a Sasquatch, something visit us last night that didn't try to hurt us. And I felt that when I was going to sleep, I felt calmness. I didn't feel no like I was protecting my kids no more. I was like, okay, I felt a calm, like something was pushing over going, it's okay, dude. I'm not here to hurt you. I'm here watching over you. I'm just resting or something. Past that, boom, it was gone. The next morning. When we went around, we went to go see if we seen some tracks. I said, let's go see if we got some deer tracks. So that's what I told them. I said it was deer. And till today, they still kind of like, it's a deer. They'll laugh at me and everything. I'm like, okay, you need to go on camping with me. Go see our thermal stuff, what we've got. We went back there, and there was a print, a rounded, smoothed out print that looked like a butt. Like something was just sitting there, just chilling. And I was like, I didn't get a picture. Like, anything like he's happened, didn't think about getting a picture. Like, oh my God, and I was like, that's cool. Just shrug it off. Let's go back fishing. We left, and it took a while for. I don't even think we ever went. We didn't go. That was the last time we ever went back to stay there. The rest of the time we stayed in the park, paying for $10 for a tent just to stay in the park. And I was like, I want to go back, which 1, 2, 3, after they got about 7 or 8 years old, I went coon hunting for the first time. And my buddy up on the mountain, he had some coons. I said, hey, I know a spot, let's go try it. Because I knew coons would pick up on this if something big was out there. Got down there, the dogs took off out there. They went around the ridge, and we ran into some brush that we just couldn't get through. The dogs were already there. We GPS, they were, man, the GPS showed them almost 10 miles, almost about 5 to 6 miles down in the brush. And we're like, dude, I said, how are we gonna get these dogs back? He said, they'll come back. And he hollered and whistled and everything. And sure enough, they come back. But they were tracking something. Coon? I don't know, because there's no coon tracks around there. And I said, let's try that. You know, I wanted them to try it, see what could stir up. And that was really the last time. That was during the winter time, and that was the last time we ever stayed there. The other time was I did the live for the show. I showed the video. I think he uploaded it to YouTube, where I went over there and actually done a video to show, hey, this is my spot. This is where it all began, and it's all been cleaned out. Brush has been pushed. I want to go back. I want to walk around, because you can actually walk around the other side of where the lake hits. You can actually walk up there. I'd like to go back, but in back of my mind, it's also telling me.
Yeah, that's on our plans. That's going to be one of the areas that we'd like to get back. And I'm glad that Walls here brought up the fact that he didn't get a picture, because as I'm sure with everyone here, at some point in your life you've thought, if somebody's seeing something like this, they're going to take a picture. We all have a phone in our pocket, and I thought the same thing. If these things are out there by now, with all the technology we have, we would have seen one. Somebody would have a good picture of one. But I can attest to the reason why, well, one of the reasons why that's just not happening. It was an expedition, it was a Mannimal expedition. Walls couldn't go on it. It was 2 of our other members, and our members one of his grandsons that was with us. So there was 4 of us down in Bartow County, Georgia. And I had just this off feeling all night. Something wasn't right. I had already been on a half dozen or so expeditions and never felt like this. I just had that gut feeling that something wasn't right. I had my 45 on my hip the whole time. That's not uncommon. Y'all probably seen it on my hip here. But when I'm out doing this, I keep a gun on me. But I just had this uneasy feeling the whole time. And nightfall comes, and what we used to do was, and we don't do it anymore, we used to go on what we called night hikes. We would get out with our camcorders or thermal imaging or night vision, and we would walk around. In my opinion, that's pointless. You know, we don't do that anymore. But we used to do it then. So we were getting ready for our night hike, and I didn't want to go. And I had gone on all of the others, never had a problem, and there was just something I didn't want to go. And I could tell the 13-year-old boy wasn't crazy about going either. So I said, well, I'll hang back here with him, and you two go have at it, go on your hike. We have radios, we'll stay in communication. So that's what they did. They left out, and they weren't gone 10 minutes before it let loose. Whatever it was, let loose. It was a combination of a bark / laugh. Just the most demonic, evil sounding laugh you had ever heard, but it started as a bark. And since this happened, I've found a couple of videos on YouTube that play the exact same thing that I heard. It's exactly what I heard, and they were on Sasquatch videos. People say that was a typical sound, is what I've heard. I didn't see it making the sound, so I don't know. But all I can tell you is I'd never heard it before. I had never been more scared in my life. Instead of reaching for my phone to record it, and this thing let out about, within a 2-minute span, probably a dozen of these bark / laugh things. And in that time, I had my gun in my hand, not my phone. I had thermal there. I had audio recording equipment. I didn't reach for any of that stuff because it never entered my mind. And that's what I'm here for. You know, I've been doing this for 6 months, and I have bought all this equipment, been on all these expeditions, and been ready to capture something, and when the crap hits the fan, I fold. You know, why? What is it about us that does that? I mean, there's the fight or flight instinct, and I've always thought to myself, if it came down to it, I would fight. At that time, no, I was I was scared. I was not going out there. I had my gun in my hand, and I got on the radio and I said, "Do y'all hear that?" He said, "Yes, we heard that." And I said, "Y'all need to get back here." Like I said, they weren't gone 10 minutes, and they came back. They had never heard a sound like that. It wasn't coyotes. It wasn't dogs. I don't know. I don't know what it was. If you guys are familiar with Thinker Thunker, and most of us are, he has a video of a Native American fella on a reservation, and he's holding the phone up to his face, and he's talking about this cackling. The cackling, that's what they called it. Bigfoot cackling or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But that laugh that you hear in the background, that's what we were hearing from not very far away. So it's very, very understandable to me, at least, why there aren't as many good pictures. Because people are scared. I mean, your first instinct is to protect yourself, not to get evidence.
Yeah. And the crazy thing is, with the area that he was in, and he called and told me this, I started researching, looking in the area up, which I, at the time, as some of you know, I ended up. How far? Up, go up. I can't fly no more. When I took off to do the research on the computer, I was like, okay, I went through hyenas, everything. I'm like, okay, is it this? Do you think it's this? And he basically was like, no, it ain't none of that. Like, okay, well, as some of you know, I independent wrestler. I'm an independent wrestler on the side, and one of the guys up in Pikeville actually lives in Georgia and is part of a Bigfoot group, or was part of it. And I told him the area. I didn't tell him the side. I said, it's in Bartow, Canton. He said, you're in Dogman area. And this is where I first started hearing about Dogman. And I was like, okay, Wayne might have had an encounter with a Dogman possible. Because he said they're all over the place. And then I went and looked up this Dogman thing and looked in the Bigfoot sites. I mean, it's I-75. There's hits everywhere of both. And I'm like, okay, why is this area so keen? Which there is a lake there, so there's water source. And the area that little spot, we actually camp next to a cemetery, which is known that Bigfoot supposed to hang around cemeteries. And that's not the only one we've had. We had Blue Ridge, where the military decided to flex their muscles. You know, we have that one, which is a small cemetery, and this one that he's talking about is actually still active. And they have I think the oldest one is the one that's a stone grave, ain't it?
Back in the 1700s.
Yeah, I mean, to see it, it's cool, because it's a massive stone grave. But the first time we ever went there was in the winter, and we had things across from the water, something going through the woods. Mm-hmm. And then we was actually chilling around the fire, and I remember, and I know I freaked him out, because I'm sitting here and I'm wrapped up, and it's cold.
It's 10 degrees.
Yeah, it was cold.
Bitterly cold.
I'm wrapped up, just sitting here next to the fire. We're just chilling, talking, thinking, what we're gonna do tomorrow. And I legitly hear from this side, and that's across I hear, hey. I look at them, I said, y'all just say something? Which, even though I heard it come this way. No, I said, dude, I just heard a hey coming from this field over here. And that's where also, I believe that night or that day, y'all found you had a casting, didn't you?
That might have been a different time.
Could have been a different spot. I think me and him, when we went on our first expedition, I think it was just me and you up in the mountains, Pigeon Mountain, which was kind of crazy. That was actually a kind of crazy lead. I actually met up with an old person and his wife to buy a kerosene heater from my rental house. And I told him, I gave him my card. I said, this is what we're actually doing. I'm gonna put a tent, keep us warm, because it was in the mountains. It was the coldest time we've ever been. And the guy literally didn't hesitate. He said, well, you ever been up to Lafayette Mountain?
He called it Lafayette Mountain.
And I was like, I didn't know Lafayette had a mountain. I said, I know I go over a mountain, but I didn't know it was Lafayette Mountain. He said, back in my day, it was Lafayette Mountain. I was like, okay. He said, I coon hunting up there a long time ago. Okay. He came out and he said, I got chased out by something. And when he says chased out, I said, what do you mean by chased out? He said, well, let's just put it this way. I seen trees going on my side, running down a trail with my dogs, trees, rocks, and growling before we ever got out of the spot. Okay. So I said, Wayne, let's go.
Yeah, it wasn't the next week. I think
it was just me and him. This was probably when Mannimal got on the map in a way. I would say this one was the big one. We got up there. We found this great spot next to the lake, and then which now the government has it closed up there for some odd reason. We found this spot. And it's perfect. The tent, that's where you see this on the website. You see my tent, that's the spot. And we're chilling and we're going to bed. We go out and do our little thing. You know, we come back, didn't really have nothing. Well, that night we left the recorder on the table.
Yeah, well, let's back up just a little bit. That night, something happened. There was a missing hiker, or it was the last day of deer season.
Yeah, that's right.
And there was a hunt that weekend, and we didn't know about it, so we were disappointed when we got there. Like, there's going to be hunters everywhere. We're not going to get anything. But we already had all of our stuff up, and we already had all of our stuff packed and everything, and decided, you know, there's no way that we can turn back. Fair.
That was a long drive.
No, perfect. Yeah, and we decided that we weren't gonna, there's no way we're gonna turn back, so we'll at least camp, no matter what happens. So I stop in and I talk to the ranger, the guy that, he's kind of over the mountain there, the recreation, and I asked him, are we allowed to tent camp up here? I know there's a hunt going on. He said, yeah, just pick a spot, it's fine. And so yeah, he's a real nice guy, super friendly. He's a younger guy in his mid-20s probably. And we get to talk to him for about 20 minutes, and I finally get comfortable enough that he's not gonna call me crazy and laugh at me. So I ask him, do you know anything about any Bigfoot sightings up here? Have you ever heard anything about Bigfoot? Because that's what we're doing. We're up here we're camping and we're looking around, seeing what we can find out. And he said, no, his demeanor didn't change. He said, no, I've never heard anything to do with Bigfoot, but there are gnomes up here. And I laughed, I smiled, I said, a gnome? You mean like a little person? He said, yeah. He didn't laugh, he didn't smile, he said, yeah, I'm serious, I'm dead serious. People, more than one person has talked about little gnomes, seeing little people running around in the woods. So I just thought I'd throw that in, it has nothing to do with anything. But that's another cryptid that someone said that was up there. But anyway, we get up there and it's the last day of hunting, and it's starting to get dark, and we noticed an ambulance flying down the road. And in front of that ambulance was a ranger, like kind of guiding. A couple minutes later, another ambulance goes by, and 2 or 3 more rescue vehicles start going by. Like, man, something is going on. Something's happening. So we're discouraged now. There's too much going on in this mountain. We're not gonna get anything. And we're out walking around a little bit, and there's a helicopter flying over us, and he's flying low. And we think that he was like shooting thermal, trying to look for, I'll put all this together, we come up with the conclusion a hunter got hurt, or maybe a hiker got lost, or something like that. So there's a lot of attention up on this mountain, is the point that I'm trying to make. So we're discouraged. You know, we've been excited about this spot and looking forward to it. Get here, nothing's gonna happen. So we turn in early. Early for us back then was 1 o'clock, about 1 a.m. Yeah. We turn in early, and before we do, I decide I'm gonna leave my my voice recorder out on the table. And so I put it on the table and I covered up with this bag of chips. We had bought another little individual bags of chips you put in your kids' lunchbox, send them to school with. Bought a big pack of those, and we set that on top of the recorder, and we go to bed. And on the recorder, you can hear our voices. You can almost hear what we're saying. It's coming in so close.
Stepped on that bottle and down I went.
The 5 minutes after we fall asleep, we start to hear this. Like footsteps. And it's coming, it's getting closer and closer, and then the footsteps stop, and you hear a bag of chips rustling. And we're asleep, not 20 feet away while this is going on. Have no idea any of this is going on. These bags of chips are moving, and they stop, and then you hear a loud thud, and then little feet. Well, it sounded like little feet running off, and then the big feet start following it. Obviously, we didn't see any of this. It's all speculation. We're putting it together in our head. Sounds like Mama carried up the baby, got our bag of chips, threw him down, he took off, and Mama followed. That's what it sounded like. So we still have this recording.
But we also had our little trap on our little trailer on the backside.
Yeah, tell me about that.
He actually got some cool lights. There was motion lights for the dollar store, wasn't it?
Somewhere cheap, yeah.
A little dollar store, and he put out some camo tape. We camoed them up. We hung one up in a tree where we was going behind our camp, going up in the hills, because there was so many tree structures we saw up there. I mean, buku's a thing. So we hid it right here, so if something comes up behind us, this thing's gonna come on, boom.
Maybe spook it.
And spook it. Well, the trail was pretty clear. I mean, it was leaves, but it was clear. Next day, we went to go up there, and I stopped dead track, and I said, dude, where are all these trees? There was limbs broken in the area where this light was at.
And the leaves were, it looked like someone had slid on leaves. You ever been running?
Spooked, basically.
Slid, leaves were disturbed and everything.
And then, basically, you could see something going back up the hill. So it's like, I think our light it spooked something. I wish we had a camera. We didn't have a thermal that time. We didn't have no deer camera. But that light, if it hit it, we didn't know it because it's behind us. But there was limbs, like either we picked it off and it just threw the limbs down there trying to kill the light or something. But yeah, we had that and went on up, and then I think we left an apple hanging that didn't get touched. But they were, the structures up there was basically, it wasn't really a built structure, it was piles of tree limbs.
Interwoven between smaller trees.
Yeah. And I was like, dude, there's one there, one there, one there, one there. And it was a night. That was basically our first big time, and he didn't know we had to record it until later. So check this out.
Yeah.
Clear as day, you can hear something on bipedal walking. And with the times that we went up there, I've not really been disappointed. Except for the last one I went and it rained.
Oh boy.
Yeah. No, I'll take that back. No. We did get something because me and Greg walked down I said, I'm gonna go down and see our spot and see what's going on. And that's when I noticed it was blocked off for one, which is crazy. And then the main road on up was also gated and blocked off, but you couldn't go up that way. Well, there's a back way up. They put a giant rock right in the thing blocking it off. And I said, then why is this blocked off? And it was probably getting sundown. We get over, it's dark actually. We go down there, I want to go see if something's, maybe there. I stopped dead because I hear three grunts in the area where our campsite's at. And I said, Greg, what is that? He goes, I think it's a bullfrog. I said, hang on, let's do it. And hear the three grunts again, like, like basically telling them, hey, we got people here. Shut up, hide. I said, you know what? I'm not armed. You ain't armed. I said, back up. Let's get out of here. I said, I'm not taking on three stooges here over here and me Dumb and Dumber up here. Not happening. And I backed on up. He came with me. He said, well, let's go watch him. Get back to the camp. Because I had my wife and John was there, and Kenneth was kind of, I think he made it up there.
Yeah, he did.
Later.
Yeah, he did.
We never went back down there because it actually spooked me. I was like, I heard them three grunts. I said, I'm not taking on three. No, not happening. They went down there the next day to the rock site and actually smelled a skunky, pungent smell. And they, you know, they looked down out the side there and they think they saw a possible nest in the muddied areas. Since you're dried up where the lake's not been overflowing. And we ain't been back yet, but we will be going back. But that's after that, the rain. It was yeah, it was just rain, it drowned it, and it killed it.
And in between that experience and the first experience on Pigeon Mountain with the recording, there was one sandwiched in there, and that's where we got our thermal images, our thermal pictures. What is the best evidence we've collected as a group so far.
Is that the one with the tricycle sound that followed us up the hill?
That was the same one.
Okay.
We heard we went on a walk up a gravel road, and we kept hearing a metallic sound.
Like if you've seen Saw, little Zigsaw has his tricycle and it's squeak. That's what we was hearing.
It put me in the mindset of someone pushing their child on an old rusty swing set. That's what was in my mind when I heard it. But we're in the middle of the woods. There's nothing metal except for vehicles. You know, everything is wooden up there. Everything's wood and just earth.
Yeah.
So there's no reason that a metal sound, and I don't know how that correlates with Bigfoot or even if it does, but I've heard that before, that people will hear metal sounding stuff. So we did hear that night on our walk. And we got whistles. We got those on tape. We also got a tree knock on tape. But the most impressive thing that we got was the thermal images of something very large doing what I typically do. I can't stand still.
He's part Sasquatch.
It's doing this. It was doing this the whole time, probably from here to my campsite over there. That's how far away it was. And something small was scurrying back and forth. And it was 10, 12 degrees that night. I don't know if that has something to do with not being able to keep my FLIR charged, but I would get 10 minutes worth of battery out of my FLIR and it would die. I'd go run, plug it back up to the charger, and we'd go, please don't leave, please don't leave, please don't leave. Let it charge for about 20 minutes, plug it up, and we'd go back and they were still in that general area. We did that once or twice, 2 more times, and then when we came back that last time, they weren't there. Whatever it was wasn't there anymore. But I do have pictures I can share with anyone. They're on our website. I posted them to the group. But interestingly enough, we were in the exact same camping spot where we got the recording. The recording of what sounded like mama and baby. And then a month later, we think we might have filmed mama and baby. You know,
Also a third one, wasn't it?
Yeah, Rick had a.
Yeah, Rick had something.
Yeah, but I'm not sure about that. I can only speak to what we had.
Right.
What we had on camera. So yeah, that's probably the best evidence that we have. And since then, we've come to this area, and I have collected a clump of hair. It was in these woods right here. I found it 7.5 feet off the ground. It was up here. Just this clump of brown hair that stunk. I mean, when you open the package now that it's in, it stinks. It still has a smell to it. And if you hold it up, it's like blends in with the background. It's really interesting. I'm trying to find the right person to send some of it to get it, you know, tested, evaluated, and it's just hard to know who you
trust somebody.
can and you can't trust.
Yeah.
When dealing with that kind of evidence. But yeah, that's been us today. We've had other experiences, but we're not gonna bore everybody with them. And if you guys have any questions,
Yeah, I like this.
Come on. We're here, brother.
I like to think my wife. I like to think Mogs, who's walking in late. I don't know what to tell y'all. Y'all already heard my stories, but so I'll take questions.
Snacks, let's go.
Questions?
I haven't heard your story.
Oh God.
Yeah, neither have I.
I knew there was gonna be one say that.
Well, that makes the second one so.
Yeah. when me and Keith started doing this, we've been camping for 30 plus years together. And we decided, I think we was out bass fishing or something like this. We heard something in the woods, and I said, man, it sounded like a Bigfoot. And Keith said something like, man, you believe in Bigfoot? And I said, well, yeah, don't you? And he goes, I don't know. So we started talking about it, went on and on like that. And so we said, started talking about, when we go camping, why don't we just, you know, go do a little Bigfoot? And so my wife said, yeah, why don't y'all videotape it while y'all out there Bigfoot and then put it on YouTube? And I said, oh, that sounds pretty good. I guess I could do that. She goes, done a Squatchin' Cowboy.
And it was born at that time.
It was born at that time. It was going to be the Squatchin' Cowboys, but King goes, no, it don't sound too cool. So that's how it comes Squatchin' Cowboy. The first real,
Happy to see you, Cowboy.
I'll tell you, my fan club, I'll pay y'all later.
Everybody's going crazy now that you got up there.
And our first real Bigfoot thing we did was in Three Rivers, Oklahoma. And we went out there, we stayed primitive camping, not around anybody else for miles. We stayed out there for 6 days. What's the 6 days? We didn't hear nothing. We didn't see them. Of course, we didn't know what the heck we was looking for, or what to listen for, or what, you know. So I decided to, a couple of months later, decided to go up to Tallahena, Oklahoma, and check it out to go up there. Somebody, a hiker, said he's seen a Bigfoot walking down one of the trails up there. So I went up there and scouted it out. I do my videos about 15 minutes long, so you don't get bored of them. And I checked it out. I made a video of Oklahoma up in the trails of Tallahena State Park. And a buddy, one of my good friends now, Keith, he told me not to say his last name because people are wanting his autograph. He contacted me and said, hey man, I live up here close to Tallahena, and I had an encounter with a Bigfoot when I was 15. Was it 15? And I said, well, tell me about it. He said, it was back then there was nothing, just real skinny, narrow logging roads. And he said he was riding his four-wheeler down there going to do some hunting. And he said, this Bigfoot come out of the creek. And he said, this is exact words is what he said. He said, it looked like somebody grabbed a poodle and dipped it in some water and stomped it on the ground and walked across that creek. And he says, dumb butt me, I jumped off my four-wheeler and went to chase it up the hill. He said, I got about halfway up the hill. I said, what in the heck am I doing? And he ran back down, got his four-wheeler, went back up there to his house, and his mama. He said, what's wrong, Keith? He said, I just seen a Bigfoot. She started laughing at him. So he contacted me, and me and Kitty went up there. I never met this guy before in our lives. Never met him before. He let us come on his land, used his side-by-side, you know, little four-wheeler type thing. Let us use that because he said, there's no way you're going to walk. You've got 30,000 acres or whatever it is up there. He said, there's no way you can walk it. He said, take my four-wheeler, I'm a side-by-side.
We've spent days and days and weeks up there and still haven't even covered.
Yeah, we haven't finished covering the whole property.
Probably even a quarter.
We go up there every year. We usually try to go up there like the day after Christmas because everybody's home looking at their presents and everything. Nobody's thinking about getting out in the woods, you know. So can't really hoax anybody up there. The first time me and Kenny went up there, we drove around trying to find a place to camp. And we decided on this place that was right beside the road. And there's only one way in this place. Camp right beside the road. And I started putting up the tent. Kenny said, I'm going to go put up a trail cam. And folks, fix that camera.
It went black.
I know you got to turn it off. Up on top there. And turn it back on. Cowboy, I'm usually finding them do that. No, that thing's made in Taiwan.
That's why.
And they only let you record 29 minutes and 59 seconds and then it cut off. But you can turn it right back on and start recording. That's true. That's what Guy Penny told me.
That's about 46 square miles you got there. That's a lot of land.
How many batteries you got?
Oh, don't say that. Oh, it probably is. Okay, I'm curious. And so I stayed there to try to put up the tent. And Kenny said, I'm going to walk down the creek and put up a trail cam. So he walked down the creek. Kenny, you can come tell this better than I can about what happened to you. Come on over here.
Come on up here, Ken.
And I'll look at the camera.
It's getting dark. I found an area earlier in the day that looked like a good spot to put a trail cam at. Oh, remember the hamburger meat? We were going to put some meat, something to smell, might draw something in, you know. And so I went and got that, and I was going back, and it was dark. And walking down there, and I heard something. First sounded like footsteps, heavy footsteps. But, you know, I can't even explain something that could walk that heavy. It's not just like a crunching, it's like a thud. Pound, pound, pounding on the ground. And then it stopped, and I finished putting up the trail cam, and I was like, man, I'm getting out of here. It was getting dark. And then when I made more noise to start back, it's like it spooked it more, and it busted through the brush and the leaves. And I've spent my whole life in the woods hunting and camping and elk hunting in Colorado and all over northern United States, and I've never heard anything that busting through that brush so hard that it made that loud noise. I got up like a camp. I freaked out. Joe had went get wood, but I didn't know where he went. It turns out the kid went back up the road. The direction I went had kind of angled off from camp to where we kind of in a V. You know, I wasn't that far from where he was. I was in the woods, but he was down the road. And I got back, and I was waiting on him to get back, and then he comes back, and then tell him what you told me.
Well, first off, the creek, he thinks that Bigfoot followed the creek down because the creek was running across the road where I was gathering firewood. And I picked up a big old cedar branch and I broke it in half. And when I broke it in half, I heard boom, boom, boom. 3 footsteps and it stops. And I have one of those little old cheap knockoff mag light looking things, you know, they're about that big. It shines about 10 feet.
Maybe.
And yeah, maybe. And the side by side didn't have any lights on it at all. And it was already dark, so I was shining out there trying to see anything, and I couldn't see anything. I jumped back in that side by side, and that side by side never went so fast in all his life. Me getting back to camp. And Keith said something about, what's wrong, man? And I told him, I said, I just heard 3 big old heavy footsteps in the woods back there, and he goes, are you kidding me? He said, because I heard a bunch of them up creek from you. So we think it was the same one.
It had to be. The way you described
Because he walked down the creek.
Exactly what I heard.
Wait a minute, this is Joe.
That's how many went by
And later on that night, it was real quiet. We were sitting around the fire. And I mean, it was just real quiet, no shouting around or nothing. So I said, I'm going to see if I can't stir up some coyotes. So I go out there and go, woo! Sure enough, the coyotes bust out. After a while, the coyotes quit. And the creepy part was when, about 10 minutes later, I hear a call that sounded just like what I did. And then the coyotes start going again. And then the coyotes die off. And then what, about 30 minutes later after that, 40 minutes later,
Probably.
it's when we heard the tree knock. And we're sitting there around the fire. Keith's got his little recorder. He's trying to get it on where you can get voice activated, right? Voice activated? And he was trying to figure out how to do it like this. And all of a sudden we hear boom, boom, 4, I mean, heavy tree knocks. It sounded like 10 times what a baseball bat would knock a baseball out of the park.
Yeah.
And me and Keith's mouth just dropped. We just sitting there frozen. It was about 75, 100 yards away from us. And then 4 more. I mean, he slowly just hit it.
Bam, bam,
Bam. And then he stopped and I took a break and got a better grip.
Or listen for more or something.
Did
and
4.
Start back up.
And then a couple seconds later, 2. And me and Ken's got what the heck is going on here?
This is thousands and thousands of acres where we know there's no way there's anybody else out there.
And Keith, the guy that owns the property, his house is about a mile from where we were camped at, and he's got a bad hip, so he can't walk very far. So it couldn't be Keith. And we're on the road into that place.
We had it side by side.
Yeah, we had it side by side, so he couldn't sneak up there. But nobody else could sneak on that place without us knowing. And the rest of the night was just dead silent. No sound whatsoever. And me and Keith stayed up the rest of the night trying to debunk it. We fought over every scenario possible trying to debunk them 18 knocks. Couldn't figure out nothing. Could only be a human or a Bigfoot. Nothing else
I
could have
used to
done
not
that.
even believe in tree knocks. I was like,
I didn't
why
either.
would they do that? What are they carrying a big stick around for when they get ready to do some? Or do they decide to and then have to find a stick? And how many times we picked up a stick in the woods to try to find one to do some tree knocks and they break and they...
Yeah, every time.
9 out of 10 times.
Right.
I don't know if...
And this, you could tell, this wasn't no dead tree it was beating on. It was beating on a lot. You could tell the difference between a tree limb hitting on a dead tree or a live tree. Whatever this was hitting on a live tree, and it was loud and it was rocking the place.
No human could do that.
And then we drove up there the next day, the next morning. Well, by the time the sun was coming up, we went and got to sleep. And then we drove the side by side back up the hill where we thought we heard the knocks. And we searched that place like curry combing a horse.
But it's all...
It's rock.
It's the whole ground.
So you can't find
rock.
no tracks.
But
It's
we
all
were
rock.
looking for maybe the tree with the impressions on it, or a stick, or any other kind of evidence, or evidence that someone snuck in and did it.
No evidence of
Leaves.
campfires.
It's not leaves, it's rocks, and that was...
And I'll say this again: we didn't find any water balls like deer hunters always leave.
It wasn't even deer season. Or near
Yeah, it was. I think deer season's up there like 2 weeks, and it's in November, so there wasn't no deer hunters around. And then we went back up there the year after that, and it rained on us all day, so we stayed. They had a little deer shack up there, so we stayed in the shack all day, the little cabin, which
Is that his shack?
it probably wasn't no bigger than this. And finally it quit raining, so we decided we'd go out there and get a fire going, just sit around and see if we hear anything. Didn't hear nothing. So I said, well, I'm gonna call it night. So we decided to get up from the fire, go in the house, and that's when it was like a pretty good ways off, but it just went raw, real loud, way off to the west of us, no, east of us.
It was nothing like you hear.
Yeah, and then just a few seconds later we hear woo out there in the middle of these woods. And I'm like, man, this is crazy, man. This is the second time we've been up here and we're hearing this stuff. Then the third time I went up there, third time I went up there is when I found the tracks. I told Kenny I was walking down the hill, the mountain, and there was a creek down there, and I just got that camera and I didn't know how to work the thing. Still don't know how to work it. And I'd come on top and I said, the creek down there says, I need to go down by that creek because he always follows the creeks. So I walked down to that creek and I was just walking along and I tried to cross it. And when I stepped across it, I seen what looked like a footprint down there, but it was smaller than mine. And I thought I was taking pictures of that footprint in the water. I didn't take any pictures of it. Didn't have any pictures of it whatsoever. But it's in the video. You can see when I take the step, the footprints down there. And then I walk on down a little bit and come across the creek again, and there's 3 more little bitty juvenile footprints. And this is out in the middle of the woods. And Keith and Sabrina don't have any kids. So nobody's taking their kids up there swimming. And the creek's only 3 or 4 inches deep, so you can't go swimming in it. But I'll say about. And then I went to Sabine River bottoms, and I walked back through the woods. I was fixing to leave, and I said, I'm gonna go check out these woods. So I was walking back through the briars and poison ivy and snakes, and guy sent me a picture of a timber rattler up in a tree, and so I'm walking, it's thick like this, walking back through there. And I come across this hill, and the hill goes up like that, kind of levels off and goes back up. and I see something look like it slid down the side of the bank, and I walked up there to it, and where something looked like where something slipped, and on that level part that's where I found about 18-inch footprint, and then another print up here that stepped and slipped. And I said, I didn't have my casting materials with me. So I said, I'll come back next week. So I came back next week, and the hogs come through there and trashed it all out. Trashed it all out. And then me and my wife went down to Fairfield, Texas, at Fairfield Lake. It's my video feature at Fairfield Lake. And we was just driving along like me and Kenny did yesterday when Kenny found that little track. We just look out, we see a muddy spot, we just kind of look out the window and see if we see anything, then we'll stop. My wife said, stop, take a look at this. So I went out there and looked. To me, I'm not gonna say it's a Bigfoot, but it looks like feet. I can't say it because I didn't see it happen, you know. There's a big 17-inch footprint this way. I think it was 11 inches footprint this way, and then right here beside it was a 7-inch footprint. Now so I'm gonna look around for more prints, and then also across the creek, the little ditch, there's another footprint. There's a barbed wire fence up there that was pushed down, and a tree limb was broke off, like he grabbed that tree limb, stepped over it, and broke the tree limb off.
Did you cast any of them? Why didn't you cast those?
Because they're in the water.
Oh, they were?
Yeah.
I wasn't with him on this.
Yeah, they're in the water. So I was talking about Steve saying that.
This is a buddy of mine that I fished tournaments with, and he laughs at us, and I'm sure y'all got those friends.
Oh yeah.
Bigfoot, you're an idiot, and all that.
I don't have any friends.
We call all these anybody.
I'm throwing it at him.
But Steve was telling me he had been overfishing in another lake. What lake?
Fairfield. That's why I went down to Fairfield.
Friend, and he was telling me, man, I don't believe it. You're not going to believe what we saw. And he said they were fishing up in this little cove, and they looked over, and it looked like something leaning.
They said there's a down tree, the tree
Yeah,
falling.
it looked like something was kind of leaning or outline or something. That Steve joked, oh look, that's a Bigfoot, you know, to his buddy or whatever, and they were laughing about it or whatever. It kind of looked like one. Then they went fishing somewhere else, and they come back an hour or two later, and it was gone. Whatever they was there, and then they were like, holy crap.
And he told me that it looked like you see the top of the head and arms hanging over the down tree like that.
Looking at him.
And when he came back, it was gone.
So he believes
And no, no, he don't. But that's about all the
And that's when you went to Fairfield Lake.
Yeah, that Fairfield Lake one, that's what I was talking about. And so I went down to Kisatchie, and Pat wouldn't show me around.
Have you looked into the Lake Worth monster at all? The big white
No, I know what you're talking
Sasquatch?
about. No, I haven't.
Yeah, you should definitely check that out soon. That'd be very cool.
I've heard a lot. I've heard that all my life.
There's a good image of it. You know, I don't know if it's authentic, but it's definitely white and furry, like the abominable snowman.
Joe, have you ever been to Brown Springs I hear so much about?
You haven't been watching my videos, have you?
Yeah, I've watched you. I ain't playing off it.
My last video that I've done.
I missed everybody's last video coming down.
Well, I haven't made a video since July because I've been sick, and I took August off to get well so I could come up here and see these guys. They were kind enough to invite me. I don't know why they invited me, because I can't handle nothing like Wayne and Derek and them. My stories ain't nothing compared to theirs.
Just getting
You've
started.
been sick in the chat room.
And I don't have the tattoos that
We
Wayne's
haven't been
got.
doing it near as long as them either.
Definitely been doing it a couple
Couple
years,
years.
2 years, 2.5 years.
So
something
give
like
us
that.
time, yeah.
Lots of action.
And I think we've been really close to seeing one.
Boy, it sounds like it.
Oklahoma.
Oklahoma's my hot spot, man. I can't say that enough. Oh, and Keith also told us that right down the street from his house, a friend of his takes care of some land, kind of like you take care of Toby Keith's land. He kind of takes care of this land down there. And he said he pulled up down there like this. Like it's flat like this and goes into a slight hill, and there's trees up there. He said he'd seen a Bigfoot come out of the trees and walk down and then go back up into the trees. And in one of my videos back to Bigfoot back in Oklahoma, I go down there and reenact what I think he's seen. I didn't get to talk to him, but Keith told me that
Yeah, he just had a family
Yeah.
member die when we went down
Yeah.
there, so we didn't want to bother him.
But he had told Keith
Gonna interview
everything
him,
that
yeah.
happens, and Keith told me where to go, where it was, and what the guy's seen. So I went down there and reenacted that. That was pretty cool. And I hope I did a good job. I'm not the biggest one, but except in the belly.
What podcasts have you been on? I know you've been on Mogi on Monster,
What has
Old
he been
Bears.
Old Bears Den.
What's your name again?
on? Nobody.
You're like the Ed McMahon on his show, though, ain't you?
Yeah, that's it. He's always cutting me down.
Have you been on Mannimal Research?
Yeah, a couple
Three.
times.
Awesome. I'm
3 times, I think. 2, 3, something like that. I've been on Bigfoot Odyssey with Cherry and Daniela, and I've been on there with Daniela and Gary Spikes. I've been on Sasquatch America, which used to be Blue Line, I think. Blue Line.
Did I have you on with Daniel Benoit and his?
No, I wasn't on there with Daniel Benoit, but that was our first interview was with Daniel Benoit.
Very cool.
And me and King was sitting out in the front yard.
That's who that was.
Yeah,
A phone interview.
a phone. It was just a phone interview.
Audio only. Yeah.
Our first interview, that was it. I thought I was a rock star.
Joe, how far do you live from the Oklahoma border?
Hour and a half, 2 hours.
Maybe about 2 hours, but get to Keith's place, it takes us about 5 hours to get there. Because of all the little roads you got to get back on to go to
Three
Tallahassee.
Rivers is it's a public hunting
His place
area.
ain't.
No, I know his isn't, but the Three Rivers you talked
Oh,
about.
the Three Rivers
We
one.
went up
Yeah,
there
is that
too.
pretty-
But you have to have a permit to go in there to hunt.
Yeah.
But it's
You have to have a permit to just go on.
yeah. It
That
costs
where
us $80 a piece
That
just to
where
go
we
camp
went
on
the
it.
one
Yeah.
time and didn't see or hear nothing,
Yeah.
and the game warden and it was
But
hot as
we
hell.
did find a big barefoot print.
Oh yeah.
And then when we woke up the next morning, about, I don't know, 50, 70 yards, I found some bear scat from our tent. So
Close enough.
that's close enough. So,
I'm gonna put this out there. It ain't about you, but it is about tell everybody familiar with who Jimmy Houston is. I know you know who
Oh,
he
yeah.
is. Fisherman. If y'all go on his site, he's got that big old pond and lake on his place, and he confirms to have Bigfoot on his land right out of. It's off of 35.
he's in Oklahoma too, man.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. He's just south of where y'all know Admore.
Ardmore.
Oklahoma. He confirms that on his place. I texted him.
That's an hour from my
I didn't
house.
text him. I just spoke to him on his YouTube channel. And he answered me back. I said, you got boogers on your place? He said, yes, sir, I do. I just told him more about it. And then that family arms guy had the one right across the fire. I don't know if you've seen that. But because Strickland with Mossy Oak on the other side of over in Mississippi, he confirmed they got boogers on their land or around where they live at. So that's two people that semi-important people that admitted to this thing that couldn't do nothing but hurt
Their channel stuff. Like
hurt
Jimmy
their
Houston.
channel, hurt
reputation.
their notoriety. And those two people, I just wanted to mention that those two people that admitted to that being around over there where y'all at, as well as in Mississippi, which we all know there's plenty of reports in Mississippi.
It's the fun of fishing. It never gets old.
Well, I've always said that the most credible reports of Bigfoot sightings are from people that have everything to lose by saying they saw one. Yeah, law enforcement.
Never catch them.
Because in law enforcement, everything is based on your credibility. You got to testify on the stand that what you did and saw was true and correct. And if you lose your credibility, it's your whole career. So, you're not going to have somebody risk their whole career to say they saw one. There's been a lot of officers, judges, stuff like that. So I love those reports. There was something else I was going to say, but I forgot now.
Okay, I know I have to ham it up, guys. It's just me. I've been doing this I've known about Bigfoot since I was 16 years old. When it comes to these creatures, I've seen a lot. I've seen a lot of them. And I've seen them in 5 different states. And I've been over most of the U.S., seen sign of them in Oregon, Utah, California, Arizona, New Mexico, Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas. I know Kansas is a flat state, there ain't nothing there. They're there too. Seen sign of them in Nebraska. You know, with my job, I'm across the U.S. I'm a truck driver, and I'm still mesmerized every day that I go out, or I'm out in the truck, stuff you can see from the interstate. I've seen X's at rest areas. I've seen tree bows at rest areas. I've seen X's in truck stops, the backside of a truck stop. That's the easiest place to park. Nobody wants to walk 300 yards to go get a burger. But I do it because, hey, where else you gonna find anything there? You're not gonna find it up front, you're gonna find it in the back, where the dumpsters and everything are at. But at age 16, I had no recollection of any type of cryptid in the world. None. The year before that, I had watched the Legend of Boggy Creek on a Saturday night with my dad. Now my dad is old school and always was. We watched what he wanted to watch at the house, because I had to go up and turn the channel and move the rabbit ears and adjust the TV. That's the televisions that we had when I was a kid. And we watched this movie on a Saturday night, come on around, I don't know, maybe 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, something like that on a Saturday night. And we had just finished watching, I think, either Hee Haw or something like that on a Saturday night. And I talked my dad into watching it. And we watched that movie together. And my mom and my grandmother, all of us lived there at home. It was me, my little brother, my dad, and my mother, and my grandmother, my dad's mom. And they just come in and saw what was on TV, and they just didn't care for it. And I think my mother and my grandmother walked down the front porch and sat out there for about an hour and a half, hour and 45 minutes. And at the end of the movie, I looked at my daddy, because my dad was my hero when I was a kid. And he was still my hero until he passed last year. We watched the movie together, and I looked at my dad. You know, I probably wasn't, you know, back in my time when I was a kid, you were pretty naive about everything as a child. And I looked at my dad after that movie went off, and I said, "Dad, has you ever seen one of those things?" And he said, "No, there's nothing like that in the state of West Virginia. It might be down in some other state where this movie is centered at, but there ain't none here." I took my dad's word for it. Then a year later, almost to the day, one walks out at 20 feet, close to 8 foot tall, dark, reddish, brown hair. It looked at me. It was chasing deer. There was 3 does that come out before that. And about 5 minutes later, this thing shows up and walks out behind this boulder. Now behind this boulder, I can stick my fingers, you can see very tips of my fingers if you're standing on the upper side of that boulder, looking across the flat top of it. You can see the tips of my fingers. Well, that's 7 feet. This thing I could see that much of its head. So it's well over 7 feet. And the lower side is lower than the boulder. And these boulders were pushed there by a dozer when they timbered that area. And it was an area that we deer hunted a lot. And what happened was, after the deer ran off, I heard it coming. I raised my rifle up to my shoulder, and this thing walks out. And I'm looking down the barrel through a set of open sights on a 30-30 rifle at something that's close to 8 foot tall. Never seen it before, didn't know what it was. I didn't care. But the first thing that popped in my head was the legend of Boggy Creek. When it finally, after probably a minute of standing there, breathing heavy, all slunched over, it was chasing and pushing them deer somewhere or to something else. And because that's typically what we did when we was kids. We pushed deer to our parents or grandparents or uncles. And there was a deer drive. And whenever it finally turned and looked at me and just looked at me, it had an expression of surprise on his face. Now, I'm a 16-year-old kid. Played football. I done everything I could do in school. And, you know, I had an older brother that was in the Air Force. He taught me, you know, composure under pressure. And my dad taught me how to hunt. My dad taught me never to be afraid of anything, never show fear to an animal. And that combined, I didn't lose it. Unlike some people that, you know, go out here and walk up on one, or one walks up on them, they lose it. Most people would have got up and ran away at that point. But I didn't move. And it looked at me for probably 30, 40 seconds, then it started baring its teeth and started growling at me. When it started that, my training from my dad and my older brother kicked in. I knew that this thing was angry and upset with me because I was there and was ruining its hunt. So at that point, I pulled the hammer back on that 30-30 rifle. And when I pulled that hammer back, it heard the click. Even though it was growling at me, it was a low guttural growl. It just went like, uh-oh, there's trouble. Or I'm in trouble. Or I'm, you know, this guy's got a gun. I'm sitting there in a blaze orange vest with a blaze orange cap on, a red flannel shirt, and a pair of blue jeans. It was warm, unseasonably warm for December in the state of West Virginia. It was probably in the low 60s. And if any of y'all are from up north, you know, come December, it's cold. It's not fun. You know, we get snow and cold rains and north winds and everything else in West Virginia that time of the year. But this year it was warm. And when I cocked that hammer back, it had its surprised look on its face, and then it started twisting itself looking for an out. And then finally it decided and went back the way that it came. Now this whole experience lasted probably 3 minutes. Once it reached probably 200 or yards or more from me, it screamed at me. And the howl that I just did was what I heard. The tone and everything as close as I can get it to what I heard. It shook me as a 16-year-old kid after hearing that howl to do the worst thing that you can do as a hunter and climb a hill and run out a number 2 gravel road with a hammer fully cocked. It's the worst thing. I was taught to never do that. I've never done it since. But at 16 years old, I was scared. It scared me. And why I sat there and faced this thing, I do not know. I guess because of, by the sheer grace of God and training that I learned from my uncles, from my dad, and from my older brother, I sat there through it. And from that point on, I didn't want to hunt no more. I didn't want to go out in the woods. I didn't even want to go trout fishing. because I didn't go night fishing for the longest time after that. But finally, my dad and them drugged me back out in the woods. And I do mean drugged me. My dad was never a big man, but I was always a big kid. But if my dad grabbed you by the ear, you went where you were supposed to go. And he told you to go do it. And it was out of sheer respect for my father I started hunting again. And I've hunted since then. And I've bear hunted. I've been up in between a pile of dogs and a bear in a bear fight, and grabbing dogs, and I've gotten clawed by a bear, ripped a brand new Carhartt coat to shreds when it clawed me. But it only cut one part of my arm. Just one claw went into my arm. We sutured that up and I went on. But enough about me. When it comes to these creatures, I want to caution all of you. I know some of you are investigators that are here, and you go out looking for Bigfoot, and you go out to research these creatures. Always be aware. Don't ever run from them. If you walk up on one, don't run. They have a predatory instinct, just like anything else out in the wild does, that can be triggered. And you trigger that, and you got a world of hurt coming. You might be dinner. Don't do it. And that's the only thing I can tell you to caution you against running from it. Stand your ground. Stand tall, and don't show fear. So if you're, I know some of you guys have seen them and some of you haven't, but when you see one, just take in what you see and don't give them a reason. They can be aggressive. Even the docile ones can be aggressive. But after 30 years, I know a little bit. I'm not no expert. I get people calling me all the time, well, you're the expert. No, I'm not. I don't know everything about these creatures. And I'll be the first one to tell you, there is not an expert out there in the world. They might know the biology of these creatures. They may not. They may know every call that a Bigfoot makes. Doesn't make them an expert. They may know what every type of footprint. They can pick up footprints from a Bigfoot from 100 yards away. They're still not an expert because they don't know everything. The only way to know everything is to be a Bigfoot. Bigfoot can be dangerous or they can be nice to you. And after 30 years of getting accounts from people, I've had accounts from both types. And I've dealt with both types. But the best thing to do when it comes to a Bigfoot is keep your research going. Don't stop. Never stop. I don't care if you've seen 50 of them. Never stop. I've contemplated quitting, and here recently I've thought very seriously about it. I've got grandchildren, and I want to see them grow up. And there are things I want to do in my life with my wife, and I've thought about quitting because of that. And I like to have fun. Me and her go camping like we here today. We like to go do that. But I'm always cautious when we go anywhere. We're in a national forest. This place is heavily forested. A lot of mountain ranges, a lot of hollows, a lot of creeks running through it. There's a major river right here beside us. Everything a Bigfoot needs to hide from us. They could be sitting up on the bank right now watching us from a cave over there. Or listening to us. It's a possibility. Always be aware of what is going on around you when you're out there. Because if they can get past your senses, your 5 senses, they've won. It's a game, and the young ones like to play that game. But there's always a chance there might be one of them that are of the type that hunts humans, that eats meat all the time. And those are the worst ones on this earth. I classify them in 5 different types. Type 1 is an ape-like creature. Looks like a gorilla, or chimpanzee, or orang. Type 2 is the one that looks like what the scientists call Cro-Magnon man. Very big, heavy brow line, a slanted forehead, hair hangs down across most of their forehead, maybe in their eyes. And they may have a beard. They might even have a goatee. I've actually seen one that has a goatee. Type 3 is the ones that looks like us. They're the humans. They're the ones that come to your house most of the time and walk up and go, TV's on. I'll just stand here and watch. And they'll stand there and stare in your window for hours on end. As long as you're up and the lights are on in that room, they'll watch you. They have no problem standing there and watching you from a distance. And we were in Indiana 2 years ago. 2 years? Mrs. Bear?
Yeah.
They had a camp going on of 2 huge Boy Scout troops. These kids are doing normal things that kids do. Running around screaming, running between the tents, and running down the road and running over in the woods, and it's dark. Pitch black. Prime time for Bigfoot to be out. We go out the road another 2 miles, pull down this road that goes to nowhere, and we do Bigfoot house. And they did tree knocks. We got an answer. Guess from where? The ridge right across from those Boy Scout troops. They were there watching the kids run around hooping and hollering. Would not come to us. They were out watching their TV. They were eating their popcorn, which could be acorns, whatever they want to eat. And they were sitting back watching the kids, having fun watching kids, watching us be stupid, not knowing they're there. We went back to through that camp later on, and all the kids are gone, but the troop masters are there. We told them that there's Bigfoot watching those kids, and they just, whatever, and went on about their business. So did we. You can only tell them. But there's so much that I've seen with these creatures. They eat anything that's in the woods. They can digest anything that we eat. I've gotten reports of Bigfoot coming to the backside of the truck stop, pulling the dumpster open and taking out bags of hamburgers from the Wendy's that's in the truck stop. It's quick and easy food for them. They can eat what we eat. I've got reports of Bigfoot coming into suburbs, getting into people's trash cans at night. I've got Bigfoot reports that are saying they eat dogs. They've eaten their cats, eaten their chickens, killed a cow. And I've dealt with the ones that are bad, that hunt us. There's not many of them, but why take that chance? See what I'm saying? You walk up on one, you don't know what it's going to be like. You don't know what type you're dealing with until you get a good look at it. And if it's at night, you're not going to get a good look at it. And people have asked me this for over 2 years now of having this channel. I thought this channel in 2 years' time may have had 1,000 subscribers. There's 10,000 people plus on my channel now. And it's because I put the truth out there about them. They can be nice when they want to be. But there's always something we do to tick them off. Because we don't know their society. I don't know what they do in their society. I can only tell you what I've observed. I can tell you this much for certain. The alpha male, he's the boss. Everybody answers to him. Other than that, I can't tell you when they have their young. I can't tell you which one in that clan is going to be the hunters. He designates that every day. That's his responsibility and protection of the clan. That's all I can tell you for certain. A lot of other people can tell you the same thing, but they can't tell you anything else. I can only tell you what I've seen. So if you want an expert, there isn't any. You want to know how to find them all the time? Nobody can tell you how to find them all the time. I can't do it. There's places I go back home that I know they stay there year round. They don't move. And it's the same place that I saw my first at 16. Because the population of deer in there, wild game, is enormous. It's right near a river. They fish, they don't fish like we do. They don't got a rod and reel. But they got them huge hands they have, and they'll sit there and they have the patience of Job. They'll wait until a catfish or a bass or whatever one they can get will come by, and they'll grab it and snatch it out of the river. I do know they do that much. So, I mean, I know this is supposed to be a presentation about what I've done. There's a lot of things that I've done in the Bigfoot world. Every one of y'all have made that same mistake. And when I'm talking about mistakes, it's stomping through the woods, making all kinds of noise, and we think we're quiet. We're not. Never can be quiet. I can walk through the woods and be as quiet as I possibly can. And to them, I sound like a Mack truck driving down the interstate, hitting the rumble strips. So I make mistakes every time I go out. Don't worry about it. You'll get your chance to see one. But you got to be out there to do it. But then you also got to watch your own back. And then there's some ladies here that I've spoken to about the color of their hair. And I can tell you this, blondes, they like you a lot better than they do any other female. Redheads are second. I was a redhead when I was a kid. I don't know if it was my hair color that got some of them to come near me, but it's a possibility. And there's too many reports of Bigfoot fixating on women that have blonde hair. There's a bunch of reports of Bigfoot fixating on women with red hair. But it seems to be that if you have a blonde natural hair color, or you got your hair dyed blonde, they fixate upon you a lot more than they do anything else. So just be careful. And if you're ever put in a situation where one charges you, I've been charged by a female in North Carolina. I've been charged by a 9-foot male in West Virginia, cold black in color, in the daylight. I've been charged by a chestnut red Bigfoot over 10 foot tall, male. I could clearly see these Bigfoot and know they were male or female. Don't back down. Stand tall and talk to them. People say talking to them don't work. It works. But talk to them in an authoritative manner. Let them know that, yeah, you might get me, but I'm going to get you too. And whenever you are out investigating, do your best. You don't have to make calls. You don't have to tree knock. They know you're there already when you get out of your car. You don't always have to make the calls to get them to come to you, because they can tell our calls from theirs. We're on a different wavelength than they are. So, if anybody has a question, feel free to ask. You got a question about any kind of
Type
Bigfoot?
4 and 5?
Type 4 is what I call the Cowboy. They're the ones that are opportunistic hunters of humans. If they got an opportunity to kill you without getting shot or getting harmed in any way, they'll kill you. They're primarily a meat eater, but they do eat stuff from the woods, like acorns, mushrooms, herbs, whatever they can find.
What do they look like compared to the human animal?
The Gugly has somewhat of a poofy mouth, like a gorilla, but they have human features. They might have a human nose that's pushed down, but it's still a human nose. They have high cheekbones. They don't have a brow ridge. They look like type 3s, except they have things that protrude from their mouth. And they eat a lot of meat. And you hear people say, well, did you smell it? Did it have any scent? These constantly have a scent because of the meat content that they have in their diet. Smell like death. And they are death to us. Type 5, or what I call the Janasqua. A type 5 looks like a demon in a Bigfoot body. Their faces are always contorted. They always have scars on their face. I've never seen one, male or female, that didn't have scars on it. And they're supersized. 9, 10, 11, 12 feet. That's what I've seen down here. I've seen them in West Virginia. I've seen them in Virginia. I've seen them in Ohio. They're not nice. And they don't care if you got a firearm. Do not care. Because they've known for over a long period of time that mankind, when you can scare him, he's not a very good shot. He might shoot 6 foot over top of their head, or 12 feet to the right or the left, or right in the ground in front of them. They know all this. They can think on the same level. Every Bigfoot can think on the same way that we can. That's why we can't find them every time.
Are they the face eaters? What they call the face eaters?
Yes. Anything that's meat, they eat their own kind. They're cannibalistic. They will kill an alpha male of any type, first 3 types. And they're big enough to do it. And they're super strong because they're eating nothing but protein. So, question.
I've read somewhere online that each of these different types talking about their footprints would seem to be different. Do you know if there's any truth to that?
Some of them have a lot of deformities in their feet. Some of them may have a hooked toe. Some of them may have only 3 toes. Everybody says, well, 3 toes is skunk ape. No, not necessarily. Because if there's a skunk ape in the state of West Virginia, it's way off of where it should be.
Oh yeah.
And I know some of you are from down further south, Louisiana area, Florida. Watch out for them skunk apes. I don't even play with them. I've been to Florida. I've been down as far in Florida as Arcadia. Actually, a little further than Arcadia. I've been in the swamps in Louisiana.
Which type of the skunk ape, which category would they fall in, probably?
When it comes to a skunk ape, I would say they would probably fit in the Gudway type.
Like the Mayaka skunk ape. She has the fangs, I'd
Yeah.
say. Yeah, that's a definitely.
They fit out to be a Gudway.
Okay.
Yep.
You know,
I can read.
the 2 words that I use, guys, they're not English. These are American Indian terms for these creatures. And both of them mean the same thing, face eaters, because they eat our faces.
Say the 2 words again, please.
Huh?
Can you pronounce those 2 words again, please?
Pronounce them?
Yeah.
It's called Gudway,
Gugway.
which is Gugwe. And then Genosqua.
Genosqua.
It's Genoskwae.
Have you seen one of every type?
Yes.
How many sightings have you had?
Last time I sit down and counted, about 35. I think.
35. Wow.
Where are you from? West Virginia. And we got the ones that stand up here and say Yahoo.
It's a very big area.
Wait.
You said, but you watched that. Where did you grow up?
West Virginia.
But it's a big state. We're in West Virginia.
What about?
Near Charleston is where I grew up.
That's still a northeast, community.
It's central. Charleston is the capital city of West Virginia.
Within 50 miles, the nearest town, I believe.
Charleston.
Okay.
So Yahoo, they actually make that noise?
Yes.
I thought it was something they just did on that Goofy Mountain Monster show.
No. They're telling you the truth. Some of them shows that we call goofy are telling you bits of truth, man. When it comes to somebody saying that a Yahoo makes a different call, they do. I can't even do their call. And it sounds exactly like Yahoo.
Do you care to elaborate on Janice's premonition about you? Just any kind of details?
Well, she's right. I have had to shoot 3 Bigfoot in my life.
Wow.
One was to save, and I'm going to use you for instance. Young lady, her size, her hair color was 10 feet in front of me, and her boyfriend was 20 feet in front of her. And it was right at dark. A Bigfoot reached out to grab her by the hair of the head, or grab her by her head, actually. And when it reached out to grab her and almost touched her, I had to shoot it. Because, first off, the area that we was in was known to have aggressive Bigfoot. Not the Genoskwa or Gugway, not the ones that hunt you, but the ones that will harm you in some way.
Mm-hmm.
In order to protect her life, I had to shoot this
Were you
Bigfoot.
out researching or just walking the trail?
We were out being Bigfooters.
Okay.
And did you see any blood splatter? Do you know you hit it? That one specifically?
Yeah, I know I hit it.
Okay.
What'd you shoot it with?
300 Win Mag.
Good enough?
What'd you do with the body?
Nothing. Whenever I let that round off, my buddy turned around and came running back to her, grabbed her because she was screaming and frozen in place at the same time. grabbed her, took her to the truck, and I followed, walking backwards to the truck. We left. When something like that happens, you don't want to be in the area.
Because there's more range.
Because there's not just one.
Out of the 5 you described, what would you consider like the Squatch?
Type 4. Good one.
What about Yahoo?
Yahoo, they're type 2s. Because most of them have a pronounced brow ridge. And, you know, they're just a bunch of good old hillbilly boys that don't want to be bothered.
You got something in common with them. You're hillbilly back, like Bigfoot.
Yahoo Greg.
So of the 3 that you killed, left them laying?
Everyone.
Did you go back and they were gone?
When we came, I went back 2 days later, and there was nothing of that Bigfoot laying there. All I found was a little bit of blanket shit.
I never forget the story about you telling about your mentor and him being taken. Your first really negative, I guess, thing that happened. That story.
That story's...
Yeah, I dreamed about that story.
That happened to me when I was still, I was in my early 30s.
That was part of your series of, if I'm not mistaken, 30 years of Bigfoot.
Bear, I'm going to verify your story on your farm. My mom's hair, she dyed her hair just like this bud right here. Started off, these Bigfoot come banging on her trailer. That's how it started. They had bang on her trailer. Next thing you know, a few weeks later, she calls me up and says, Kenny, something's tapping on my window. And it's constant. Just tapping it, tap for an hour. Just tap, tap, tap. It scared her so bad. She got her dogs up and run to that car. She was scared to go outside for a while. Run to her car and left the state of Alabama. That happened.
It wouldn't be nothing new.
That happened. And that was crazy.
I don't know how many of you have heard the one that I did early on about the truck driver and his wife, and they had a son and a daughter. Daughter was the oldest, about 16 years old. Mom's in her early 40s. Dad's in his early 40s. The youngest one was the boy. He's 8, 9 years old. 2 Bigfoot, the male Bigfoot, the alpha, was outside of their bedroom, the master bedroom, pleasuring itself because it was watching her when she would get out of the shower and go in and change into her night clothes. Well, they had a huge bay window. They don't make blinds that big unless you special order. They just had the house built. This started almost instantly after they moved in. And then the other male, the eldest son in that little family unit, was watching the daughter, doing the same thing that its father was doing. That didn't end well for those Bigfoot because they charged him while he was sitting on the deck one night. So they can turn on a dime. And that's the best story that I can tell you that illustrates. They were doing something that they wanted to do, but the moment that the alpha of this family was there, it changed. They wanted to attack him. It didn't end well. Not for the Bigfoot. Yeah, they're smart, but they also have primal instincts. We've lost ours because of the society we live in today. They haven't lost theirs. And that's why I caution you 2 ladies, change your hair color if you can. We'll keep it covered.
Ralph, how do you, one problem I'm having thinking about how to react or what to do is the bluff charge issue. I kind of look at bluff charge as like, you know, when I was out on the streets, everyone's got a gun as far as, because there's a gun involved in any situation we're involved in because you've got a gun, because you're an officer. At what point do you say this is not a bluff charge? I'm going to take this thing down because I'm not going to stand there
50 yards of it.
50 yards, okay. Because as fast as they can move, which is lightning fast, you got
don't
reaction
have a
time
snowball's
involved and
chance
stuff.
in you know what.
Huh?
You don't have a snowball's chance in hell.
Yeah.
I'll put
So
to
you're
you,
kind of, if
that's the
one
simplest
charges
I can
you,
put it.
you're kind of at the mercy of whether it is a bluff charge or not.
If you see this, I'll give you, for instance, that happened to me. I was in North Carolina. This female, I went behind this lady's house to do an investigation because she called us and begged me to come down. She was having a big, huge alpha male blonde Bigfoot standing outside her window watching her at night. It had actually got to the point where it was testing the doors on the house. She's blonde and she's built like a Barbie doll. It's the simplest, easiest way I can put it, nicest way. This male Bigfoot, although it's not tried to harm her, is very protective over her. The night we showed up, it walked within 15 feet of me to try to intimidate me. Intimidation doesn't work. It makes me mad.
How big was this one?
Close to 12 feet.
How tall is that trailer?
13.2. Right now, as close as it is in the front, about 12 and a half.
So pretty close to the
Yeah.
to that trailer.
And these creatures, they can protect you. They can watch over you. They can keep mountain lions from eating you if you live in California or anywhere in the West where there's mountain lions. They can do all that. But you make one affront to those creatures and you're done for. And I can't tell you what you did because I don't have their brain. I don't think like they do. I think like we do. Something will just go, oh, whatever, and walk away from them. They don't do that. I do know that much. They look at everything that we do as a threat because we are a threat to them. And if you go out at night and you carry a gun, you're a little bit better off. Most people don't carry the ones that I do. When you carry a gun, most of the time all you're ever going to have to do is flip that holster open and pull it out and point it in their direction. Heck, a cell phone can work and look like a gun to them. So if you're out there and you get bluff charged or you get charged and that Bigfoot's coming at you and he started 75 yards away and you see him, pull that cell phone out or that handgun out and point in their direction. That charge, full-on charge will change to a bluff charge. He'll stop at 50 yards. He don't want to die. And you don't want to have to kill him.
They did.
Yes. They know what a gun looks like.
Have you ever been harassed by like the Men in Black or the government?
I'm a truck driver. There's been times that I've been pulled in to a weigh station. No other trucks are there. Weigh station shows up as closed. But we have a little computer monitor that's tracked by our company. And it's also attached to the U.S. Department of Transportation.
Yep.
And when it comes across there that you have to pull in, you have to pull in. I've been pulled in and said, yeah, I caught your last video. You just shut up.
Yeah, I'm not surprised.
I've been stopped on the interstate by a state trooper in my own personal vehicle. Not that one, but the ones that I owned before. And they've told me, you need to shut up. I can't shut up. I was given this by the same person that called me to preach, to tell the truth that I know, and to help others learn. So I can't give up. I want to quit. It ain't gonna happen.
What's your personal opinion on the government won't tell us for some reason?
I couldn't hear you.
What would be the reason the government won't tell us the truth that these things are real? Your personal opinion.
You make that $1.
Oh, I knew that part, but I'll see if there's anything else.
My personal opinion is it's all about the power the government has and the money that it will cost. Tell me one politician that you know of, from the lowest form of government to the highest form, and I don't care if they're a governor or a judge, Supreme Court judge, whatever. Why are they that high up in the government? It's all about money. When you can vote your own raises, and we don't get raises, it's about money.
Well, when I first got in contact with these things, I'm trying to get help. State trooper, game warden, forestry, no help whatsoever. The forestry guy, not forestry guy, but the game warden, I brought him to the spot, showed him that nest, that blind, where these things are at, right where I got on film. He told me, when I told him, can I shoot them, get them out of here? Well, I don't know nothing about them. He says, you can't shoot them because they're federally protected. I said, well, if they're federally protected, how do they exist if they don't exist?
Yeah.
You can't quote me on that. That's exact words to me. Exact words.
I've heard that before.
If we find somebody that's retired from the government, it might help you.
The only way you're going to get the federal government or state government or your county or your city, local city government to admit that they're real is that a body's brought out and they're forced to do it. Yeah, they brought out everything about UFOs, what they had. Quote, everything they had. It ain't even a quarter of what they had.
What is UFO? Unidentified
Flying objects.
That could be a chi-chi bird.
If you don't know what it is, yeah.
That's why they changed the name.
Skyfish.
Which we seen the footage of the naval fighter or the naval out of the plane. Everybody has probably by now.
Oh, you mean the one about the name of that chase thing?
Yeah.
So I know everybody wants to know what my personal opinion is. Why would the government want me to tell me to shut up?
That's another good reason.
Yeah.
Why would they tell me to shut up? It's because I ain't afraid of it. You can take this body and take this life away, but you can't take my soul. There's only one that'll take my soul.
I got a question before you get too far.
Go right ahead.
How many numbers that you know of around the United we got? Guesstimation.
I would estimate about 1 million Bigfoot in the 48 states. If you add in Alaska, you probably add another 5 to 10,000, 20,000 more or something like that.
I heard somebody estimate there's 9,000. How do you come up
If
with
there's 9,000, how in the world do you
Would they
think
be
a
able-
creature that's super able to use everything in the woods to defeat our eyes and our ears and our noses can be seen that many times?
Yeah. I mean, to me that seemed grossly underestimated.
That means all the clans that I've seen and all the family units that I know about, they were only in West Virginia for a short period of time, and I happened to see all of them at once.
Yeah, exactly.
Personally, I think the numbers are way higher because there's tons of caverns. You know, human beings, we take up skyscrapers and maybe some deep basements. They have caverns for miles, and then they live on the surface too.
We also abandoned mines, railroad tunnels.
100%, man.
They do everything they can to defeat our senses. We're real good at it.
Are they more likely to bluff charge you during the day than at night?
During the day.
Okay.
At night, they know they're superior because they know we
so
can't
they're going
see.
to lurk around and watch you and stalk you. And, okay.
They'll make all kinds of noise at night, and it scares most people.
Mm-hmm.
Earlier, they were talking about stomps.
Right.
Breaking tree limbs. Wayne them had a tree limb fall here. Tree across the road fell. It's meant to scare them. They succeeded in scaring 5 people out of here.
I have a question for you. Kenny and Joe were talking about the footfalls they heard.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there were, you know, Kenny said he's hunted elk. I have too. I've had elk around me. You know, where I hunt, there's cows. You know, I mean, and there's 1,200-pound bulls, which is not a big bull, but I mean, it's big as far, you know, if you're sitting on the ground, he walks by, it's pretty daggone big. But, and they make a lot of noise going through the brush, but you don't hear the thump thump. And this is a 1,200-pound animal. These Bigfoot, you know, they could be that big, but 14-footers, but at an average, they're probably an 8-footer, probably what, 600-800 pounds? You know,
somewhere in that
how come
range.
the ground vibrates? Is it because their feet are bigger and they're bipedal? That's the sound they're going to make?
They can, because of the way their foot is structured, they have that metatarsal break in their foot. When they go to set their foot down, they can slap the front part of their foot, therefore make a bigger sound.
So when you hear that, you know it's probably bipedal before you identify it's on 2 legs, just because of the sound.
Our heel and roll, you know.
Right.
Yeah, we hit heel first. They hit
just
front of the
like
foot
they're
and then they
walking
heel.
like a duck or something like that.
Yeah.
All your flop around.
And you jump down off of something.
I have a question
come
about
down
the
with that.
eyes.
It's like,
Do each of the 5 types have different types of eyes? Because now we're hearing
No,
stories
not
of
all of them have different eyes. Yeah, there's stories about
different colors and different things that they're capable of.
Bigfoot in Kentucky have green eyes. Not all Bigfoot in Kentucky have green eyes.
Okay.
Only certain ones that are living in cave systems,
Have green
like
eyes
the
because they
Mammoth
can see.
caves, Carter caves, so on and
Okay.
so forth.
All right.
Because they're more in the dark at night.
Okay, so the green eyes are the dark. Okay.
They don't come outside of that cave system until it's dark. It's the same thing as when you guys use FLIR.
Headlamp.
When you use FLIR, if somebody turns around and shines a real bright light into the new style lights that are super bright and super white, shine into a FLIR and see what happens to it. Shuts down. Their eyes do the same thing. But that's only one clan, huge clan actually, that does that. They have yellow eyes, they have green eyes, they might have an orangish eye.
So they have different eye colors just like humans do? Or is it?
The different way they reflect.
Okay.
And if you see one and it's got red eyes and you're not shining light in that direction, run to the highest hill and dig a very deep hole to the bottom of that hill.
I've heard yellow, red, and orange.
Say that again now?
You see one that's in the woods and all you see is, and you got your light pointed down and you're watching where you're walking and you see red eyes and there's no light reflecting in that direction, find the tallest hill you can find, dig a hole to the bottom of that hill and cover yourself over.
Well, you couldn't do that.
They're pure evil.
Do their eyes have, like, I hate to compare it to bioluminescence, but I mean, they can glow if you're not shining any kind. I mean, deer, you know, we all shine.
The only ones I've ever seen that had what we would call bioluminescence is the ones that have red eyes.
Okay.
And most of them are the
would be a
Gutplay
reflection
and
of
Genospa
sunlight.
types that have the red eyes.
Hey, she was talking about the green eye one.
Well, I heard a story about the green
Why
ones
I
having
bring that up is because right where I'm from in Chickamauga, Georgia, we have the Chickamauga Chattanooga battlefield. Another story of a